Music can have a dramatic influence on our focus, on how we move, and obviously our overall mood. But the question is, should we use it for running? And if so, how? Well, I'm going to be looking at the pros and the cons of running with music today, as well as speaking to an expert to do my best to answer that question. I have to start by putting my hands up and saying that I am fairly neutral on this one, as personally I don't actually run with music for various reasons which I'll describe later on, but I thought I'd start with the pros, basically covering what I'm missing out on. Performance. Yes, music has been proven to improve performance, which is a big claim, I know, and it does depend on the type of music, but we'll look into that more when we speak to the expert later on. But I'm sure if you've ever done a live event or a race and there's been live music, a band or a DJ playing, then you'll have experienced that lift. Whether you realised it at the time or not, I bet you got a benefit from it. It can help cancel out distractions and get you in the zone, eliminating any outside thoughts as you lose yourself in your favourite tracks. And I know a lot of you guys don't like to hear the sound of your breathing when you're working hard, or maybe your feet pounding on the ground. Well, it's a great way of eliminating this. And music's also a brilliant way to get you in the mood before you go for a run. I personally listen to upbeat tunes just to help get me motivated, as often getting out of the house is the hardest part of a run altogether. And now for our final pro point on the list. What if you don't like structure, or you don't want to think when you're out running? You just want to go and sort of lose yourself and not look at your watch or follow a set program? Then why not allow music to help dictate your running and just break things up a little bit? For example, you could use the structure of a song. So you could run steady on the verse and you could run really hard on the chorus of each song if your song suits that. Alternatively, you could simply just do one song fairly steady, one song at a higher tempo. And if you want to take it a step further, you could even structure a playlist that's going to work so you don't have to think about it, you just follow that and your tempo should change naturally. It's time to look at the cons, and I'm not being a party pooper, I'm just wanting to show both sides of this debate. So our first con is the fact that you have to carry something extra to play your music on, whether that's your phone, an iPod or something similar. It's one more thing to remember. I know quite a few of you will probably carry a phone anyway. If you don't and you want to know how to carry a phone, then check out the video we've done on that recently. But like I say, it's just one more thing to have to think about before you head out of the house. Headphones pose a similar problem. It's one more thing to think about and to carry, and actually it's been my biggest barrier to running with music because I just can't find any that work for me. So the in-ear headphones with a cable are constantly popping out. I even resorted to taping them in at some point. You've obviously got the option of over-the-head earphones or even noise-cancelling ones, but it's an extra weight to carry and they can get rather hot and sweaty. And recently I have experimented with ear pods, the in-ear pods, which seem to be okay. I do have to readjust them a little bit, but I just have that sort of forever fear of them popping out into the undergrowth and never to be found again. Running is a great form of escapism, and I know a lot of people use music to escape, but if you've got the opportunity to run somewhere like this in the countryside, then going without music just lets you appreciate your surroundings a little bit more. And obviously you see quite a lot, but when you've got the sounds and the smells to add to that, you can kind of embrace the experience so much more. Another point, running with music can be a little antisocial. If you're passing people, it's hard to say hello or hear what they're saying back. And if you're running in a group, then I personally find running with music actually quite rude, because you might as well run on your own if you're completely cancelled off to those around you. We're almost there, but there's an important one I need to cover, and that is safety. Running with music cancels out that sort of perception that you have from things around you. And fair enough if you're running somewhere that's really open and there's nobody else around, but if you're even running on cycle paths or tight paths with other runners, you won't hear people wanting to pass. And if you're near roads, then it really does become serious because you just won't hear cars coming behind you. And this is part of the reason that you're not allowed to use music in quite a few events or races, is you just won't hear the other runners around you, especially in a mass participation event. So if you're used to continually training or doing all of your sessions with your own playlist, and you suddenly come to an event and you can't use music, it's going to be a bit of a shock to the system. So it's good to practice with that if you know you've got something like that coming up. Final one, I promise. Now, earlier I mentioned that music can help you run faster, but it can actually limit your running. If, say, you're at a set tempo, that your cadence is following the tempo of your track, then that could limit you from actually adapting your tempo if you're going up or downhill or you're doing different efforts. It might be subconscious, but it could be notable. Enough of my thoughts, it's time to get scientific. Earlier, I caught up with Professor Kostas Karageorgis from Brunel University, who has spent over 25 years researching the impact of music on athletic performance. And I wanted to look at the numbers, so I started off by asking him how much of an effect can music actually have?
Well, we've been looking at running performance over the last quarter of a century or so, and it seems that when people who are recreationally active use music and synchronize their stride rate with the music, there can be a performance benefit in the range of 10 to 15%. So it's not to be sniffed at. But at the elite levels, clearly those athletes have better developed motor programs. They're able to regulate their movement patterns more effectively. And so music has less of a gravitational pull. So I think it's more those who are participating at the recreational level, the sub-elite level, who are likely to derive the most performance benefits from music relative to those operating at the elite level.
Can it ever be detrimental? Could music actually make your performance worse in any way?
Oh, absolutely, it can, and on numerous grounds. So, for example, if you become accustomed to training on a regular basis with music, and then that music is taken away in a competitive context, just like any other mild stimulant that you might use, that would have a detrimental effect because you might be dependent on that music to elevate your mood, or to reduce your perceived exertion, or to function as a sort of metronome. And so when you haven't got it in the competitive arena, that can have a detrimental effect. And I always tell athletes, at the very minimum, to train with music for 2 sessions, but to do at least one high intensity session without music, so that when it comes to race day, they're adequately prepared psychologically. And the other thing, interestingly, when you combine very loud music with high intensity running, that has the propensity to cause damage to the inner ear, to the cochlea, the shell-like part of the inner ear. That is lined with follicles, with hairs, and when we're running at a high intensity, the blood flows away from the inner ear towards the working muscles and leaves those follicles more susceptible to damage from the vibrations of the sound. So not a lot of people know about this, but using music during high intensity activity can cause tinnitus, it can cause vestibulopathy, it can cause temporary hearing loss, or it can cause more permanent hearing loss if the music is used in the long durée.
Wow, that's quite scary. I had no idea, and I'd imagine a lot of our viewers wouldn't know that either. But going back to the positives, how, and this is kind of a very broad question, but can we use music effectively? How do we get these benefits that you talked about earlier from music?
Well, I think that the first thing is that people think unidimensionally about how they use music. They tend to use it while they're running, while they're circuit training, while they're engaged in a particular activity, whatever that is. And what our research has uncovered over the last quarter of a century is that many of the benefits of music can be reaped before you start performing, in terms of the music engendering the right sort of mindset. So many athletes use music either to pep themselves up as a sort of psych-up strategy, or if they're feeling anxious about an upcoming competition, it can be used to reduce or to ameliorate anxiety. So there's that whole pre-performance thing going on that athletes are able to tap. And music is an extremely effective means of ensuring that you feel the master of your own destiny, that you set the pattern of your pre-event routine, and that you create a mood and an arousal state that you associate with peak performance. So that's pre-performance. During performance, you can use the music in 2 main ways. One is asynchronously, that is where the music is playing in the background, but you're not consciously syncing your movement rate to the rhythmical qualities of the music. And used in this way, music can elevate your mood. It elevates positive aspects of mood such as vigor, happiness, and excitement, and it can reduce negative aspects such as tension, depression, anxiety. It can also be used synchronously. Now, this is where you consciously synchronize your movement rate to the rhythmical qualities of music. This takes a little bit of preparation, clearly. And when I work with athletes, you'll often see me on the back of a quad bike with a digital camera, filming the athletes at different running tempi, and then working with the athlete, going through their music library and assigning specific tracks to specific types of running workout. Now, generally what I try to do is select pieces of music, and I seek those into a music program that is 1 or 2 BPM above the athlete's comfort range. That gives them a little jolt, a little push. They're working harder, but the increased work rate is imperceptible in terms of their perceived exertion, how they process fatigue. So they get an ergogenic effect, but they have no sort of negative psychological consequence. So that is the asynchronous and the synchronous. Asynchronous, anybody can use it, it's easy. The synchronous takes a little bit of preparation, albeit with modern apps, it's very easy now to use a technique known as passive synchronization, where the music essentially will follow your stride rate. So that is an advance that's been made with modern technology, and we can take advantage of this using a smartphone. Now, the third type of application that runners don't know a lot about is the recuperative or the post-task application. Much of our research over the last 5 years has centered on whether music applications can expedite or speed up the recovery process. So we look at hemodynamic indices such as heart rate and blood pressure. We look at psychobiological outcomes such as salivary cortisol. We measure mood. We take a range of subjective measures. And in sum, when we've done this type of research, it shows that the music can have a significant effect in terms of speeding up recovery, particularly in terms of reducing hemodynamic indices such as heart rate back down towards homeostasis or a resting state. But most significantly of all, it seems that a really vigorous workout can do some bad things to our mood state. It can lead to us feeling pretty grotty, particularly when we've thrashed ourselves. And so music can help in returning us to a very positive mood, a mood of revitalization, feeling re-energized and ready for whatever might lie ahead in the day. So generally speaking, the subjective responses and the subjective measures tend to yield more positive outcomes with music than more objective measures.
How does one, this might be a really sort of silly question, but how does one actually know what the BPM of a song is? Is that easy to find?
Actually, that's relatively easy to find. A fail-safe way to do it is to play the track and then to tap out the beat for 20 seconds and to multiply that by 3. So for example, if you tap out 40 beats in 20 seconds, multiply that by 3, you get 120 BPM, which is a very common tempo in popular music. If you're not comfortable with the tap method, which you can do without any technology, or you can use a tapping app, and there's an abundance of those available online, very easy to find with Google. You can also go into any DJ website, type in the title of the track and the artist, and it will provide you with the BPM. So there are multiple ways of finding out that information. Often when I'm constructing playlists for athletes, I'll use multiple forms of establishing the BPM so that I'm absolutely sure. And the funny thing about BPM is that it can be felt differently by different people. If you take a really classic track like I'm a Believer by the Monkees, some people will feel that at 160 BPM, and others feel it at 80 BPM. So there is a little bit of variance. And it's important that when you're helping somebody select music, they're easily able to extract the beat or the meter for whatever it is they're going to use it for.
That's fascinating. Thanks so much for your time, Costas.
It's been great speaking with you.
Some really fascinating stuff there. I mean, I didn't know there was so much science behind running with music, and I could have spoken to Costas all day. But like he said, it doesn't even have to be purely for your run. You could use music to get you in the mood beforehand or help you wind down afterwards. Or maybe if you don't want to run with music all the time, you just choose it for those key sessions to help you get that extra percentage out. Or if you'd rather listen to your body on those, then keep it for your easy runs and see it as a treat, and you can listen to maybe a whole album for that. And there's also scenarios which are better suited than others. For example, running on the treadmill in the gym is great because you know there's no distractions, you're not going to have to talk to anyone, and you can put your phone down so you wouldn't even need to carry it. If however you're out on the country lanes, then you probably want to run with maybe just one ear in so you can at least hear traffic. I mean, if a car's stuck behind you, it could be a bit embarrassing if they've got to hoot their horn to waken you up. It doesn't solely have to be music that you rely on for distraction. Why not listen to a podcast or an audiobook? Or if you're feeling brave, even learn a new language whilst you're running. I mean, there's no harm in multitasking, is there? I personally love a podcast, but those in-depth ones I keep for my super easy runs so I can fully concentrate. And if you are going really easy, there's nothing wrong in taking a phone call. I mean, it's just the same as chatting to a friend whilst out running, as long as you warn your recipient and they don't mind heavy breathing down the other end of the line. Well, that is it for today. There was quite a lot of science there, which I wasn't expecting and I found fascinating. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. It's definitely made me want to go and experiment with music. Maybe I'll try and run another 5K hard at some point on the treadmill and see if that can give me that extra boost. But let me know how you guys use music in your training, if you do at all, or if you've been inspired by this video. Remember to give us a like if you have enjoyed it, and check out our social media channels and follow those too.